Today you will be painting some fish in the style of Pointillism using watercolors. So you will start by drawing out your fish with a pencil, going over those lines in black Sharpie, and then you will begin to practice mixing colors using small points of watercolors. You will have a practice sheet, and then you will use what you practice and put that onto your fish. So once your fish is drawn, you will use this practice worksheet to practice using the pointillism techniques and practice mixing colors, because when you're using this pointillism technique, you never want it to be just one color. You want the eye to be mixing two or even more colors. So you'll use a round brush, and the first color I want you to work with is green. So I want you to practice mixing different shades of green. And you'll start by getting your brush wet, dipping it and swirling it into the color. And when you use this round brush, make sure you're using the very end of the brush to make those small points in the square that you are practicing in. And the closer together your points or dots are, the darker the shade, the further apart your dots are, the lighter the shade. So once you've filled with as much of the color, the first color as you want, then you would clean out your brush, maybe not even all the way, and switch to your second color that you want to be mixing. So if I want to make a lighter shade of green, I'm going to think about the color wheel and what colors are next to it that could make it lighter other than just adding white to it. So I'm going to choose a yellow and start to make small points of yellow all around and next to my green, and some of them might even start to overlap. And I did not clean off my brush completely, and that's almost okay because now I kind of have a yellow-green that is mixing with my darker green. So now we have a light green here. Next thing I might do is practice mixing another shade of green. So again, I'll fill my box with green, and I maybe could have done both boxes with green right at the beginning if I wanted to, or I could use the other green on my palette if I would like to for the second shade. And now this time I want to make my green darker, so I'm thinking about the color wheel. Blue is next to green on the color wheel, and that's something that I could use to make a darker shade of green. And this could also go on a shadow part of my seaweed or a darker part of my fish if some part of my fish is green. So now I'm just putting these blue dots next to the green dots that I made to make a darker shade of green. Again, the closer together I put my dots, the darker the shade will be. And the colors kind of start to mix when they're both wet at once. Now that I have practiced my two different shades of green, I will then go back to my fish drawing and use what I practiced to fill anything in that is going to be green. So I'm using the point of my brush and filling in my green seaweed with my main color of green. Just doing very light touches to make these small dots. And notice how I haven't had to refill my paintbrush this whole time going down. Now as soon as it starts to maybe not be so pointy, I might go and kind of stir up my paintbrush to make it into more of a dot. And then continue to fill this in. Now what you can do with your different shades of green on your seaweed is decide where the highlights and the shadows are going to be. So maybe on one side of your seaweed the light is hitting it. So I might go back with my yellow and hit this side with a lot of yellow because that's where the light is maybe hitting my seaweed, and then I could go back on the other side and use my blue to make a shadow with my green. Using what we know about the color wheel and tints and shades, I could use that blue on the other side to make a shadow. So now that I've done the right side with my light shade of green, I will grab my blue that I practiced with to make my darker shade of green and the opposite side will have that dark green shadow where I'm mixing the blue and the green on this side. I have those small points all coming together. And if I feel like if I have maybe too much white showing through right now, I might even go back with the green that I started with and fill in any of those white spots. And kind of bring it all together by using that green one more time. So it's slowly changing from dark green to light green. After you are finished with your green, the next colors I would like you to practice mixing with the Pointillism technique are warm colors. And the first thing I want you to be thinking about is the warm colors that you would like to use for the sand at the bottom of your ocean or your lake floor. So don't worry too much about what the labels say, make red orange, make yellow orange, make a skin tone. Here and here I would like you to practice what you would like to do for the floor, the sand on the ocean floor. And then if you would like to do any warm colors on your fish, this would be where you could practice that. So don't worry so much about the names that are on this worksheet. These are just places for you to practice, but next you are practicing with warm colors. And if you want to have a light colored sand on your ocean floor, I would start with yellow, practice with yellow. And then if you want it to be a really bright colored sand, it would be like a yellow and an orange. But if you want it to be a little bit more realistic looking, you might add in more brown. Okay, so I started with yellow. I'm just going to fill in this other box over here with yellow for practicing, since I already have yellow on my brush. That also gives these points some time to dry. The more time you give your paint to dry, the less it's going to mix like it did up here. If you let it dry, then it won't, the water won't mix together right away. Then you're letting it mix more with your eyes. So now that I've done my yellow, I'm going to add some orange with my yellow, filling in kind of any spots that I have not already. And you could use either orange to do this, that's kind of your choice. And right now I don't even need to dip into my water when I'm getting my orange. My orange has enough water in it. When you're doing pointillism, you don't want too much water on your brush because then it won't, the brush won't make such a point. It will kind of expand, and you can see that some of my brush strokes are kind of doing that, but that's okay. Alright, so while I'm waiting for those to dry, I might come over here. I'm going to test out what it looks like when I just add brown right away with my yellow, and this is something you could do as well. So you're experimenting, trying new things, and then after you have figured out how you want to do your sand, then if there's warm colors that you want to do on your fish, you could practice that too. And then you would go over to your final drawing and use what you practiced. Don't take too much time to make these perfect, but now that I've given this some time to dry, I'm going to just add in some brown dots, and then you can kind of just decide how dark you want your sand to be. My dots haven't dried yet, so it's kind of spreading into the other colors. So again, if you don't want them to spread right away, let them dry a little bit first. Alright, so now I'm going to go over to my fish. So I decided that I liked my yellow, orange, and brown combination, so I'll start by making just dots with my yellow all over where my sand on the floor is going to go. It should not take me too long to get one color done. And make sure that you're getting close to the black outlines that you have drawn. If you're not getting really close to those, it's not going to look quite as realistic. You do want to make sure you get up close to anything else that you have made, Just be careful that your colors aren't mixing, like my yellow's not mixing with my green if I don't want it to. Okay, so I've filled in my yellow in this area, and I would suggest doing the whole ocean floor with one color, then going on to your second color, and that's with anything that you do. Fill that whole color first, then move on to your next one. I'll do a little bit more, and that also gives your dots some time to dry. If you fill in a big area with one color, by the time I'm done filling the bottom of my sand with yellow, this side will be dry by the time I'm done filling this in. And again, the closer your dots are together, the darker the shade of the color is going to be. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to orange. And again, I really don't need very much water on my brush, but I will go in and fill in my orange wherever I see that I have white spots. It's kind of random, and this should be done quickly. This isn't something that you take forever to find the right spot to put that dot. You just need to go and fill in. Oops, I grabbed the wrong color. Again, doing my best to use the point and the tip of my brush to do this. You won't get a perfect point every time, but the closer they are together, the better.